Hey everybody, Taylor with KC here, and in this video today we are going to be talking all about rock lights. So think of this as a Rock Lights Explained or a Rock Lights 101 video. We're going to be covering everything that you need to know about them, such as why you might want to use them, other terminology for them, where and how they get mounted, and then some extra special considerations for them as well. So with that, this is KC Academy. Let's dive right in. So before we get into why you might want to use them, what their actual practical functionality is, I think it's probably important that we cover other terminology for them, just a couple quick other terms. So we typically call them rock lights. In this video, we're only going to be covering the actual lights that are underneath the vehicle. You can take these same lights and use them in other applications. We're not going to be covering that in this video. Rock lights is the most common term, but sometimes you'll hear them called underglow lights, underbody lights, things like that. Those all hint at where they get mounted. Rock lights get mounted underneath the vehicle, and what their use is pretty much exactly as it would sound, right? They are mainly intended to be lights that improve your ability to see over obstacles as you are off-roading at night. As you are rock crawling at night, you have big gnarly obstacles that you gotta get over, see around. These are the lights that are lighting up that immediate area so you can see exactly where your tire placement is so that you know if you are on the right line or if you are offline or whatever that may end up looking like. That is exactly why you would wanna run rock lights. Another really important thing of that is you don't want just to have rock lights for your own use. Another thing that's actually really nice about these is in those tougher trails, those tougher scenarios where it's a little bit harder and you have a spotter, you also are going to use rock lights so that your spotter can see your line and they can help tell you where to go. That's the number one functional, kind of the practical side of things of why somebody might want to run rock lights. The second side of things, there's no shame about it, is kind of an aesthetic standpoint, right? You can customize these. You can get some in either a single color option, or you can get an RGB, a color changing option of light, and that's simply to match the color of your vehicle. A lot of people like to do that because they like to have that personalization, that character to their Jeep or to their UTV or Tacoma or whatever it may be. And that's a huge element of this as well, is simply that personal style and personal touch to their vehicle. So whether you want to run them on the trail, whether you want to run them simply to set up your camp at night as a little bit of ambient lighting, or heck, maybe you're at the Tacoma World meetup in the middle of Starbucks parking lot at night. Hey, we've all been there, right? Run them just like that. I think that's the bulk of what rock lights are and why you might want to use them. Now that you know what rock lights are, let's dive right into where and how they get mounted onto your vehicle. This is kind of a universal guide. This might work in most applications, but you're probably gonna find some that it's not gonna work. Most typically, people mount their rock lights just in their wheel wells at the top and the dead center of that. Myself personally, here at KC, we don't recommend that. We actually think there's a little minor tweaks and adjustments to that standard typical placement that you can do to actually improve the performance of these so that you can see better and that your spotter, more importantly, can see better when you're using one. What I actually recommend is if you're looking at the vehicle from front to back, right? The front, the grille of the vehicle, the headlights, whatever, all the way to the back of the tailgate or whatever, you would want to place a pair of rock lights on each side. You're gonna keep it symmetrical from passenger to driver side of the vehicle. You'd place one in front of the front tire, then you'd place some in the back of the front tire. So those are your first four, right? If you're running a 6-light kit, then you would simply just put the remaining 2 in front of the rear tire. And so that way when you're driving, you can see your front tire, your spotter can see in front of your front tire, you can see behind it and in front of it. And if you ever had to look back as you're stopped, you can see in front of your rear tire as well for the placement of that, just to see where that's gonna track. Now, if you want a really truly optimal, a little bit more high performance setup for rock lights, you would add another 2 to the rear of the rear tires. With 8, that's a really, really good setup for rock lights. It's gonna give you tons of visibility. Honestly, you don't need much more than that. Now, in all reality, a lot of people like to put a lot more on than that. So they like to get that mix, that blend between function and style, a little bit of fashion thrown in there too. So you can always adjust it from there, but that's really kind of the basics of where they should get mounted underneath that vehicle. So now, how do you actually do that? Well, there's a couple different options for it. with some of our lights in particular, and actually even some other rock lights out there, you can use magnetic mounting options. That is obviously, it is the quickest, it's one of the easiest ways to mount them. There are most often really strong neodymium magnets that have real high pull forces, so they're not just gonna fall off if you have a very solid steel mounting surface to it. Now, if you have a Super Duty, one of the newer ones with the aluminum body, you're gonna have a little bit more trouble on where to mount a magnetic rock light. That is when the other side of things come into play, which are simple L brackets or Z brackets, things like that. You can bolt it to existing locations on your vehicle and then snap your rock light right into there. Or you can choose to drill out new holes into your frame or any other appropriate place in order to mount those brackets up, so that way you have the ability to mount your rock lights. Now, of course, all the fabricators out there are just gonna already say, hey, you know what, I've got a welder, I can tack on tabs exactly where I want it. And if you have the ability to do that too, even better, you can get a little bit more dialed in than that. That's the basis of how and where they're going to get mounted. Okay, totally forgot to mention the last actual way to mount rock lights. On our Cyclones, us personally, we have a bolt-through design, so it's super quick and easy on that. On our RGB rock lights, it's actually a self-tapper screw that you can tap into sheet metal or something along those lines. So tapping in with screws is the third and the final way to do that. Not a lot of people like to do that. Some people aren't as comfortable with tapping self-tappers into wherever they want it to go. That's just one little consideration to think about when you're selecting some rock lights to go with. So typically in this series that we're working on mounting locations for your off-road lights, we would want to cover two different things, right? One we would want to cover is the beam pattern. For these lights, there's really only one beam pattern for rock lights. It is a nice flood or diffuse light, so it's spreading that light out over a real wide area, but short distance, right? So because they're gonna be closer to the ground and you don't have to see long distance out of it, super quick, super easy for that. The next is how to aim them. That's something we'd also cover, but you really don't have to cover that in this. It's more important to get them mounted into the right location. And because that light goes in such a wide circular area around kind of the location, the source of the light itself, it doesn't really matter if you aim them too far angled one way or another. I mean, as long as it's not crazy, you're pretty much good to go. So with that being said, let's dive right into, I think, the final topic for this video, which is just some extra simple considerations. So one of the main considerations when it comes to selecting the rock light that's gonna work best for your needs is the durability of the thing. You gotta think about all of the environments and all of the tough scenarios that you are gonna be putting these things through, right? They live underneath the body of your vehicle. Could you imagine if you yourself had to hang on under there? That would absolutely suck, right? So these things are gonna get hammered, they're gonna get destroyed, so they have to be durable enough to withstand those tough conditions, right? So we're talking shockproof, vibration proof, we're talking waterproof, dust proof, all of that stuff, all of the above, you need these rock lights to be. Otherwise, when you need them most at night and you're counting on them to turn on, they're not going to turn on if you chose ones that are not as durable as they should have been. Most of the time, it's a real high quality polycarbonate lens on these things that is going to prevent rocks from coming up and cracking that lens and allowing water to get in. They have nice seals around them, aluminum housings on these things, so it's real nice high quality material. So that's one big consideration, is just the durability of these lights themselves. So the final consideration for rock lights is, I know we spent a lot of time talking about where you mount them, but there's a couple things there that you just really want to be cognizant of, right? So you want to make sure that you're not routing the wiring for these in a location that's in a pivot point for your suspension, or could get trapped in the coil if you have coilovers, or in linkages, things like that, because that's not going to be good. It's going to rip out your rock lights of exactly where you wanted them. So because these go into areas where there's a lot of movement, from suspension components to steering knuckles to all that kind of stuff, you really want to be careful about where you place these rock lights themselves. A lot of people think, well, I'm just going to suck it up into the wheel well, right? Not realizing how much wheel travel that their vehicle has, and then the next thing they know it, they forgot to do a little bit of trimming here, trimming there, and all of a sudden their tire came up and made contact with it and ripped the rock light right out. So That's a really important thing to be aware of, is just where you're mounting these and how you're running the wiring. Just do a really good job of running everything cleanly, avoiding all of the super hot exhaust pipes, things like that, as much as you can, so that way you're not melting wires accidentally or starting fires, anything like that. So in summary, that's pretty much everything that you gotta know about rock lights. That's your crash course on these suckers. Really, they are meant just to improve your visibility when you're going over tough obstacles at night. They get mounted underneath your vehicle. The most common color for these, I didn't touch on those, is white, but some people like to do ambers or reds, things like that. Or with the RGBs, any color that you want, because you kind of have access to all of them. Just pick something that is super durable and just be careful with where you are running those wiring, and you're pretty much good to go. With that, we hope that you found this KC Academy video very useful. If you have any questions about rock lights, go ahead and put them in the comment section below, and either Jacob or myself, we're gonna do our best to get back to you and answer whatever questions those might be. If you have suggestions for other videos or other topics that you yourself have been confused about, give us those ideas. We love to hear about it. All of these videos that we work on are from your ideas and from the questions that we get from all of you. Please give us a big thumbs up, subscribe to the channel if you like this video and want to see more of it. And with that, I think we're out. Thank you guys for watching, and remember to adventure further.